Why do you think Harry wants it so bad? As I say, we reported that it's his dream. It's his dream to have his father there at Invictus Games. Invictus Games is very important to him.
This is Harry trying to make peace. This is Harry trying to seeking some sort of forgiveness. I don't know if it's going to happen like that. I mean, it's obviously that last meeting they had. Absolutely nothing's come out of that. Nobody knows what was said. We don't know what was said, but something could happen. There could be a bit of grovelling on Harry's part. He may have to. A public apology, certainly to the Queen and his brother, or whatever things he's trashed, he may have to sort of get down on his knees and apologise for that. But, whatever happens, anything's possible with his family. This is, if they want it, it'll happen. If they don't want it, it won't happen. And we won't know till when it comes around whether it happens or not. But, that Invictus Games, I mean, I did the very first one in Colorado Springs. And I'm telling you, it's fantastic. The way these soldiers wield themselves, these injured servicemen make an effort to sort of compete. And it's incredible. And Harry's just, he's a star for doing that. He's an absolute star for doing that.
I feel like that is what Invictus Games was. But now I feel like it's just a PR stunt for the Sussex squad and the Sussexes. I do think that what it is them showing this is what we are, this is Brand Sussex. I mean, I don't think it's about the wounded soldiers anymore. And I think that's half the reason that he's trying to find a photo op to try and rehab their brand. I just wish that it was more about those wounded soldiers and less about Harry and Meghan. But we can see even with Meghan's involvement, which we'll get into later, that it's just become a PR thing for them.
It's an interesting point because we've both been, as I say, to these events. I've been to The Hague and Dusseldorf, and we sent a colleague to Canada, and it's only raw photographers and raw reporters that go to cover the Invictus Games. It's not military defence reporters. It's not reporters reporting on disabilities or rehabilitation. If you didn't have Harry and Meghan there, people wouldn't report on it. That unfortunately is the truth. So they have to go there and add a bit of stardust. And this time he obviously wants the King to come next week.
It is. Will Meghan turn up? Will Meghan turn up? And when she turns up, it becomes a big show. Yeah.
We did ask our viewers, our very intelligent viewers, and we love to hear the comments and read the comments from our viewers. But we did ask, should King Charles accept this offer to the Invictus Games? And I can guess which side of the camp you two are in here, but 93% said absolutely not, Harry's gone too far, which I assume you're in that camp. And you're in the 7% team, Arthur, which is, of course, they are father and son. We also have some comments from our wonderful viewers. I'm Sterling says, it's not an olive branch from Harry, it's Harry using the firm for more attention to the event and hence for himself, which I think you were talking about, Samara. We've got Rita O, and this is an interesting point. It's not about father and son, it's about the King supporting the veterans. I mean, that's the most important thing, isn't it?
Well, yeah, of course, but, it's all... I mean, he's never been to any of... No head of state's been to any of the Invictus Games yet. And because it's in Birmingham and it's possible that he could be going, the King is... I mean, the King goes to the most amazing events. When you read what his diary does, you think, why has he gone to this sort of remote place of Wales? But he does it because, he gets invitations and, I don't think we know is the real answer. But, Tamara says it won't, but I think it might.
Well, Mary McCormick, 8166 wrote, this is a family matter, father and son, none of our business.
For historical
so that's us told, everybody.
Prince Harry was awarded £140,000.
Let's move on to, sticking with Invictus Games, sticking with Harry and Meghan. Apologies, but we need to go through a little bit more on the wonderful Sussexes. Meghan could well return this summer because the Invictus Games has a 12-month out countdown event in Birmingham. It's a date in the diary, they get security, there are plans for the Duchess of Sussex to come over here this summer.
After Prince Harry was awarded £140,000.
Yeah, it's Britain, the country that she loves the most, isn't it? The country she said nothing bad about or made any series about.
Had been targeted to a modest extent and found that 15 out of the 33 sample articles provided
I am actually really 50-50 on whether she will come or not.
I mean, Vera Group newspapers have apologised unreservedly for historical wrongdoing. After Prince Harry was awarded £140,000.
She's going to have to be prepared to be booed. There will be booing.
you remember with the Platinum Jubilee,
agreed
there
that
was
Harry's
St Paul's
personal
Cathedral
phone had been
as the
targeted
Sussexes
to a
went in.
modest
I was
extent
there. There
and
was a
found that 15
smattering
out
of
of the
booze.
33
That
sample
was the last time she was got, and then there was
were the result of hacking
remember
and
at
other
Windsor,
unlawful
when they went
information
to the long
gathering.
walk
Mirror
after the
Group
death of Queen
newspapers
Elizabeth
have
II,
apologised
and
unreservedly
there was
for
quite a hostile
historical
atmosphere
wrongdoing.
to Meghan.
After Prince
Do you
Harry
think
was
those kind of
awarded
things they have to prepare for them? Would she
in
be
his
put
High
off by
Court
that kind of
phone
opposition?
hacking case against the
I think
firm.
she'll try and plan
The
her
judge
trip
agreed
around
that
not
Harry's
having any of
personal
those sort
phone
of
had
public
been
events
targeted
where
to a modest
the
extent
dislike
and
of the
found
public will
15
be
out of the
on full
33
display.
sample articles provided
But
were the result of
I
hacking
just
and
don't
other
see her. I mean,
unlawful
will she bring the
information gathering.
kids? That's
Mirror
another
Group
question. You
newspapers
know,
have
they
apologised
haven't really stepped foot
unreservedly
in this
for
country
historical wrongdoing.
properly.
After
Do
Prince
they
Harry
even
was
know that they're
awarded
royal? Will it be weird for them to
in
see
his High
what they're
Court
missing
phone
out on?
hacking
I mean, I'd be
case
pretty
against the
annoyed if
firm.
I was
The
penned
judge
up in
agreed that
California
Harry's
and I saw
personal
this life
phone
in
had been
Britain that I,
targeted
you
to a
know,
modest
lost out to
extent
because my
and
parents
found
made some
15 out of
irresponsible
the 33
choices.
sample
So
articles
it will be
provided
very
were the
interesting. I
result
think
of
maybe
hacking
if
and other
you're right in
unlawful
terms of
information
cameras
gathering.
and
Mirror
bringing
Group
sort of
newspapers have
publicity to the
apologised
Invictus Games,
unreservedly
of course,
for
her
historical
being
wrongdoing.
there will be
After
great
Prince
for
Harry was awarded
or at least just to get any sort of
£140,000
press,
in
good
his
or
High
bad.
Court
So
phone hacking
let's
case
see,
against
but
the firm.
I don't think
the
the
judge
reception
agreed
will be
that Harry's
positive.
personal
I
phone
was at
had
St
been
Paul's for
targeted
that
to a
event
modest
too.
extent
I was in
and
St
found that
Paul's, and
15
all I
out
was
of the
concerned
33
about was
sample
getting pictures
articles
of Meghan.
provided were the
And if you
result
remember
of
all the
hacking
pictures
and
of them
other
leaving
unlawful
the
information
cathedral,
gathering. Mirror Group
the pictures in the
newspapers
papers
have
the
apologised
following day was
unreservedly
Meghan
for
and Harry.
historical wrongdoing. After Prince
Whatever
Harry
you
was
say
awarded
about her, I mean, I'm not a big fan of
£140,000 in
hers,
his
but
High Court
somehow
phone hacking
she
case
just
against the firm. The
captivates
judge agreed
people's
that
interest.
Harry's personal
And-
phone had been targeted
And
to a
this is
modest
just what's going on
extent
in
and
America
found
with
that
these shows
15
she's
out of
doing.
the
I mean, I think
33
they're
sample
terrible,
articles
but
provided
she's selling this
were the
stuff
result of
apparently,
hacking
the
and
wine,
other
the
unlawful
jam. I mean,
information gathering.
you know,
Mirror Group
whatever this woman
newspapers
turns
have
her hand
apologised
to, she seems to
unreservedly
crack
for
it. And
historical wrongdoing.
if
After
she wants
Prince
to
Harry
come,
was
she'll
awarded
come, and she won't care about the booze.
£140,000
And
in
I
his
think
High
she'll need
Court
police
phone
protection
hacking
if she
case
does
against
come
the
anyway,
firm.
because
The judge
I think
agreed
someone
that Harry's
could easily
personal
throw
phone
something
had
at her.
been
But, you know,
targeted to
I've
a
not met
modest
a woman,
extent
I've
and
not
found
spoken
that
to a
15
woman
out
over
of the
30,
33
and
sample
I ask them,
articles
what do you think
provided
about Meghan?
were the
And I've
result
not
of
heard
hacking
one
and other
positive
unlawful
reply.
information
She's not
gathering.
liked
Mirror
here.
Group newspapers have
I don't think that would
apologised
worry her.
unreservedly
If she
for
felt, if she
historical
could sell more
wrongdoing.
jam by
After
being
Prince
here,
Harry
or
was awarded
a few more bottles of wine, you never know.
£140,000
Well,
in his
I would
High
imagine there
Court
would be
phone
jam
hacking
if she came over
case
the
against
Invictus. I
the
remember
firm.
the Invictus
The
had,
judge agreed that
in The
Harry's
Hague, she'd written
personal
a book
phone
about a
had
yellow
been
bench, and there was a
targeted to
yellow
a
bench
modest
there
extent
to
and
promote her
found
book.
that
So
15 out of the
I would imagine
33
she
sample
she would use
articles
it commercially. She's
provided were the
used
result
that.
of
She's used that
hacking
title,
and
the
other
Duchess of
unlawful
Sussex,
information
purely
gathering.
to make
Mirror
money
Group
with the interview
newspapers
with
have
Oprah Winfrey,
apologised
the Netflix
unreservedly
shows, this
for
one she's got on
historical
at the moment.
wrongdoing. After Prince
She's
Harry was
making a pile
awarded
of money, and she's now very
£140,000 in
famous
his
in
High
America, where
Court
before we
phone
never
hacking
even heard
case
of her.
against the firm.
And,
The judge agreed that
and
Harry's
she's just
personal phone
capitalised on
had
it.
been
If she wants to
targeted
come,
to a
she wants to
modest
bring the kids,
extent
it'll be
and
part
found
of
that
the deal.
15 out of the 33 sample
it's
articles
possible, you know.
provided
Not
You
much
mentioned
were
about
the
the
result
opposition
of
there from
hacking
members
and
of the
other
public, which is, you know,
unlawful
is well known.
information
Let's not,
gathering.
I'm
Mirror
sure
Group
she's aware of it as well.
newspapers
She's
have
not the most,
apologised
clearly not the most popular
unreservedly
person in
for
the UK.
historical
I
wrongdoing.
sometimes think
After
actually
Prince
believe
Harry
that
was
the
awarded
popularity has gone down since
£140,000
Brexit. I
in
think
his High
it's at a
Court
low
phone
point, but
hacking case against the
Samara,
firm.
has there been enough
The judge
water
agreed
under the
that
bridge?
Harry's
Has she
personal
been
phone had
relatively
been targeted
quiet
to
for
a
the
modest
last couple of
extent
years?
and found
Is
that
Invictus
15 out of the
Games a
33
safe
sample articles
place? She'll be
provided were
surrounded
the
by
result
friends.
of hacking
There won't
and
be
other
members of the
unlawful
public like there was
information gathering.
outside
Mirror
St
Group
Paul's Cathedral. Would it
newspapers
be
have
a
apologised
safe place?
unreservedly for historical
Well,
wrongdoing.
if, you know,
After
the
Prince Harry was
invites
awarded
being extended to all members of the royal
£140,000
family,
in his
maybe,
High Court
maybe it
phone
won't be
hacking
such a
case
safe
against
place
the firm.
for the royal
The judge
family,
agreed that
because if
Harry's
they're there and
personal
she
phone
says
had been
anything to them
targeted
and
to a
they say
modest
anything to
extent
her, you know, it could
and
all
found
be
that
reported
15
and
out
leaked
of
to
the
the media
33
as well.
sample
So
articles
I think it
provided
will
were the result
absolutely
of
be
hacking
red
and
hot
other
with
unlawful information gathering.
Drama if she does step foot in the country.
Let's start by clearing the air, because a lot has been said, and much of it sounds confident while quietly collapsing under scrutiny. Prince Harry does not want his father at the Invictus Games out of desperation, weakness, or some performative plea for forgiveness. That framing misunderstands both Harry and Invictus entirely. Wanting your father present at an event you built to honour wounded veterans is not manipulation. It's human, it's family, and it's rooted in pride, not guilt. Invictus Games is not a vanity project. It never has been. Long before cameras followed Harry, before Meghan ever attended, before social media commentary turned everything into a scoreboard, Invictus existed for one reason: to restore dignity, confidence, and community to injured servicemen and women. That purpose has not changed just because the founder happens to be globally recognizable. Visibility does not erase sincerity. In fact, it amplifies impact. One of the most repeated claims is that Invictus has somehow become all about Harry and Meghan, and no longer about the athletes. That argument falls apart the moment you ask a simple question. Would these athletes receive global attention without that visibility? Even the critics themselves admit the truth they try to minimize. They acknowledge that without Harry and Meghan, the Games would receive little coverage. That is not exploitation. That is advocacy. When celebrities lend their presence to causes, we don't accuse them of hijacking the mission. We praise them for using their platform. Yet when Harry does exactly that for veterans, suddenly visibility becomes suspicious. That double standard tells us more about the critics than about the Sussexes. The athletes competing, the families watching, and the millions engaging globally see something that transcends the noise. They see purpose, they see commitment, and they see two people who refuse to disappear quietly to make others comfortable. That is not a scandal. That is integrity. The true purpose of Invictus Games. Invictus Games is not a vanity project. It never has been. Long before cameras followed Harry, before global visibility transformed everything into spectacle, Invictus existed for one fundamental reason: to restore dignity, confidence and community to injured servicemen and women. That purpose has not changed just because the founder happens to be globally recognizable. In fact, the opposite is true. Visibility does not erase sincerity, it amplifies impact. The Games mission remains unchanged despite the media attention, the headlines, and the constant scrutiny. What critics fail to understand is that increased visibility serves the athletes, not the other way around. Every camera that turns toward Invictus is a camera that shines on stories of resilience that would otherwise go untold, on victories that deserve recognition, on human beings whose courage deserves to be seen. The skepticism that Invictus has somehow become all about Harry and Meghan collapses the moment you ask a simple question. Would these athletes receive global attention without that visibility? The answer is no, and that is not exploitation. That is advocacy. That is using a platform precisely as it should be used, to amplify voices that matter, to honor sacrifice, to remind the world that wounded warriors are not statistics. They are people, and they deserve to be seen. In defense of Harry and Meghan, why the criticism misses the point. The narrative that Invictus has become all about Harry and Meghan crumbles the moment you confront it with a basic truth. Without their platform, these athletes would receive minimal global coverage. Even the critics themselves concede this point, yet somehow still weaponize it as evidence of exploitation rather than recognizing it for what it actually is: advocacy. Here is where the double standard becomes impossible to ignore. When celebrities lend their presence to causes, we celebrate them for amplifying missions that matter. We praise them for using visibility as a tool for good. Yet when Harry does precisely that for veterans, when he transforms Invictus into a globally recognized movement that brings deserved attention to wounded servicemen and women, suddenly that same visibility becomes suspect, reframed as manipulation. The inconsistency is not accidental. It reveals a bias that has nothing to do with the Invictus Games themselves and everything to do with how Harry and Meghan are perceived through a predetermined lens. The athletes themselves are not victims of their presence. They are beneficiaries of it. Their stories, their resilience, their triumphs reach audiences they never could have reached alone. That amplification serves the mission, not the Sussex's image. Pretending otherwise requires willful blindness to what the data, the athletes, and the critics' own admissions actually show. Reconciliation does not require humiliation. Here's where the logic truly breaks down. Reconciliation has become confused with capitulation, as if healing demands public submission and performative apology. But accountability and healing are not the same thing. They never have been. Harry has already spoken openly about pain, mistakes, and boundaries, repeatedly, thoughtfully, and at considerable personal cost. He has not hidden from difficulty or pretended his actions were flawless. Yet somehow that transparency is never quite enough. The goalpost shifts. The demand becomes not understanding, but surrender. True reconciliation, however, requires effort from both sides. It cannot exist as a one-sided absorption of harm, where one party must continually prove their worth while the other remains fixed in judgment. That is not healing. That is punishment dressed up in the language of family values. Real reconciliation means both people moving toward each other, both people willing to see the humanity in the other's position, both people choosing to build forward rather than remain locked in old narratives. Anything less is not reconciliation at all. It is control. In defense of Harry and Meghan, why the criticism misses the point. Invictus is not a PR rehabilitation project, and dismissing it as such reveals a fundamental misunderstanding of what the games actually are. Public relations seeks praise, control, and the carefully curated illusion of perfection. A polished narrative where every detail serves a strategic purpose. Invictus, by contrast, is raw and emotional, grounded in the real struggles and genuine triumphs of athletes whose stories are far too big, too complicated and too human to fit neatly into an image-polishing exercise. These are people who cry publicly, who fail visibly, who process trauma in front of cameras and audiences. Their messy, unfiltered humanity is incompatible with the sterile logic of reputation management. When a veteran breaks down discussing their journey, when an athlete celebrates a victory earned through months of grueling physical and psychological recovery, when families gather to witness their loved ones reclaim dignity, none of that serves a PR agenda. In fact, true PR would demand something safer, something more controlled, something less likely to complicate the narrative. The Invictus Games contradicts the very framework of rehabilitation because it refuses to sanitize human experience for public consumption. Harry and Meghan's involvement in the Games does not diminish this reality. It amplifies it, giving global attention to stories that deserve to be heard not because they are palatable, but because they are true. The unfair scrutiny of Meghan's presence. Here lies one of the most revealing contradictions in the entire criticism. Meghan is attacked not for anything she actively does, but simply for the attention her existence naturally commands. The panel itself exposes this truth while trying to bury it. They claim to dislike her, yet they chase her every photograph. They criticize her involvement, yet they admit that headlines orbit around her. They simultaneously dismiss her as irrelevant and obsess over her every move, a logical impossibility that reveals the real issue. Meghan does not manufacture fascination. She does not orchestrate headlines or engineer public fixation. She simply exists within spaces where attention already flows, and critics mistake her presence for her intention. Blaming her for media obsession is fundamentally unfair. It confuses the spotlight with the person standing in it. She is not controlling the fascination, she is existing within it, and that distinction matters enormously. Charitable work and commercial involvement are not mutually exclusive. The obsession with separating Meghan's charitable efforts from her commercial projects reveals a fundamental misunderstanding. or perhaps a deliberate refusal to acknowledge that these two things are not opposed forces, they are parallel expressions of the same person's values. Supporting Harry's life work through Invictus is not opportunism masquerading as devotion. It is what partnership looks like when both people are committed to something larger than themselves. Yet the panel insists on framing it differently, suggesting that any commercial venture, a podcast, a production deal, a book, automatically contaminates charitable involvement with self-interest. That argument crumbles the moment you examine it honestly. Public figures engage in both charitable causes and commercial projects constantly. They always have. A doctor runs a practice and funds a hospital. A filmmaker produces commercial work and directs documentaries. A business person builds companies and establishes foundations. We do not accuse them of hypocrisy. We understand that financial stability and meaningful work are not mutually exclusive. Yet when Meghan does precisely this, when she creates income streams while supporting her husband's mission, suddenly the same logic does not apply. She is accused of leverage, calculation, and hidden agendas. That selective standard is the real story here. It is not about what Meghan is doing. It is about the double measure being applied specifically to her. The bias is not subtle, it is demonstrable, and it deserves to be named. In defense of Harry and Meghan, why the criticism? Misses the point. Security concerns are not theatrical flourishes designed to manufacture sympathy or control narrative. Harry and Meghan's safety worries are documented, historically grounded, and shaped by demonstrable threats that extend far beyond speculation. When critics dismiss these concerns because someone spotted them walking freely in a supermarket or attending a public event, they are not engaging in serious analysis. They are abandoning logic in favour of convenient dismissal. Safety is contextual, not performative. It shifts with circumstances, locations, and threat levels. A moment of relative calm in one setting does not erase documented patterns of harassment, security breaches, or targeted messaging that have been extensively reported and verified. To suggest otherwise is to fundamentally misunderstand how security actually works. Real protection requires constant assessment, not the kind of casual observation that assumes if no visible danger appears in one instance, then no danger exists at all. That reckless approach to analysing legitimate concerns reveals more about the critic's willingness to dismiss inconvenient truths than it does about the validity of the Sussex's position. The couple's need for heightened security considerations is not an invention. It is a reality shaped by experience, documented incidents, and the specific vulnerabilities that come with their level of public visibility. Accepting this does not require agreement with every decision they make. It simply requires honesty about the facts. In defense of Harry and Meghan, why the criticism misses the point. The real legacy of their choices lies not in the accusations hurled at them, but in what those choices actually represent. Choosing family over scrutiny, mental health over performance, and personal values over public approval does not disqualify Harry and Meghan from compassion. It demonstrates it. They have extended care to those around them, to the causes they champion, and to themselves with a clarity that critics conveniently overlook. Stepping away from harmful environments, from institutions designed to diminish rather than nurture, represents survival, not failure. It takes courage to walk away when the world demands you stay and suffer quietly for its entertainment. Yet the athletes themselves, the very people at the heart of Invictus Games, recognise something the cynics miss entirely. Purpose and commitment cannot be faked in the faces of wounded warriors seeking dignity. When servicemen and women speak about feeling valued, seen and honoured, they are not reading from a script. They are witnessing genuine advocacy in action. The global community watching this unfold does not measure success by tabloid headlines or comment section votes. They measure it by the tangible impact on lives rebuilt and spirits restored. That recognition, that validation from those who matter most, speaks louder than any panel of critics could ever hope to. This is what their choices have truly bought. Not redemption, but authenticity. Not rehabilitation, but integrity.